this case, which started locally, made its way to the Supreme Court, where? Right here in Washington, D.C., the Board of Education Brown versus the Board of Education. We know a year later, this is 54, 55, before Trayvon Martin, before Tamir Rice. Are y'all with me for a second here? Ain't it funny how history repeats itself? But it ain't that funny because it's happening to us, who happen to be a certain over. Chicago. Anybody from Chicago out there? Anybody got people from Chicago? Oh yeah. What do we do when we come up north? Y'all, we send our kids down south for the summer. My people from South Carolina, we proud Geechees from South Carolina. Oh yeah, right? Emmett Till's mama, Mamie Till, sends her son down south. Emmett is hanging out with his relatives. They go to a local store. He allegedly, he's a boy, a little kid, he allegedly whistles at a white sister, a white woman. Someone don't like that. Fast forward, while he's in bed with one of his cousins, and I got to meet this cousin he was in bed with, he's in his 70s now, a couple years ago here in Washington, D.C. These white men come and they remove Emmett from the bed. Emmett disappears. They beat him up brutally. 14 years old. These are grown men. They beat him up so badly, he's unrecognizable, but they don't stop there. They tie a fan around his neck. They strangle him. And then they just throw him in the river. He's dead. This is 1955. We're now in 2016, and we know that just recently it was decided that little Tamir Rice and Cleveland like that and have toy guns. All that matters is someone saw Emmett Till and Tamir Rice as a threat and a danger that had to be destroyed. We can't videotape the whole thing, so they're officially videotaping it over there. And y'all can get a copy of this or watch it via the Boys and Girls Club. Is that right? All right. I'm bringing this up because this is 1955, and it's been said that between that Supreme Court decision and what happened to Emmett Till, that kick-started the Civil Rights Movement. But we know, because we're students of history, what we're going to do from this day forward, what Brother Jones has been saying we need to do. We need to read. We know that way before Rosa Parks, and God bless Rosa Parks, but way before her, there were black women and black men who had been organizing and protesting all over the South. In fact, you can't even talk about the Civil Rights Movement without talking about black women. You know, we got to stop acting like this was just dudes doing all the work. Not true. Not true at all. Reading is important. But Rosa Parks, because she was a secretary, she was a seamstress, and she was a member of the local NAACP, she became the person, the symbolic figure representing resistance to segregation. Y'all know what happened. And so Dr. King, who just wanted to be a local preacher, when they decided to have the first meeting about doing this boycott, they said, oh, we're going to have the meeting at your church. And so anyone who's a Christian, like I am, and I respect everyone, if you're Jewish, if you're Muslim, even if you have no other faith, I just hope that we're spiritual, right? These be spiritual. But Christians know what I'm talking about. Some of us are called to do certain things, and some of us are chosen. Dr. King was chosen, whether he wanted to be chosen or not. And this boycott went on for a year. And it brought the bus system in Montgomery to its feet. Why did I ask the young people to stand up and say they're geniuses? He's 6 years old when he led that Montgomery bus boycott. He was a young man. If you took him out of 1955 and put him in 2016, he too would be listening to Kendrick Lamar and Fetty Wap right now. Y'all feel me? He too would speak the language of young people today. Are y'all with me out there? And so this is why it's important not to disrespect young people, but to love young people and be supportive of young people, because you never know what that young person, she or he, could become. Are y'all with me? 26. Because we read, I'm not going to give you his whole biography, but we know that after the Montgomery bus boycott, he had other successes, but he also had failures. We know that by 1960, college students started something called the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. The late Marion Barry, mayor of Washington, D.C. Y'all know who Marion Barry was, right? Then we also should know that he was actually the first chairperson of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, Marion Barry. Stokely Carmichael, who went to Howard University. His family's from Trinidad and Tobago and the West Indies. He grew up in the Bronx, New York. He came down to Howard University, which was this bastion, right? And he became a part of this movement. And so you had the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, young people. You had the Freedom Riders riding buses, young people. You had those sit-ins in places like Greensboro, North Carolina, where she's going to school soon, our poetess. Young people. Oh yeah. Young people leading this movement. Let's fast forward to 1963. Y'all remember the famous footage of people being water hosed? Because all the adults by this point were in jail, so they can't, you know what? We have young people who can do this work. A lot of those folks were not even teenagers out there. Are you with me? And then we know that this work of civil rights, we weren't even asking for a lot. Can we be citizens and can we vote? Can we be citizens and can we vote? And it feels like we're still asking this question in 2016. Dr. King gives us I Have a Dream speech that Brother Jones did a piece of for us. I want to talk about some of the speech that people don't talk about. He uses the term police brutality twice in that speech. Don't take my word for it. Read the speech. Listen to it. Police brutality. He gives us a history lesson where he talks about Abraham Lincoln and emancipation, but then he said that we've been given a blank check marked what, y'all? Insufficient funds. Woof. He also gives us action steps. Unlike some of our leadership today, we talk about song called The Black Man, and he's talking about all kinds of people. That song is really about curriculum change and how you really should be educated. Am I right, y'all? But what Dr. King was saying is Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics will join together singing the words of the Negro spiritual. What he was really saying is that all of us are equal, and so I'm bringing something to the table too. As a black person, one of the things I bring to the table is my music. Where would America be without my music? Are y'all with me out there? You know what I'm saying? But if you really study Dr. King after that, because people get stuck on I Have a Dream speech, they get stuck on 1963, August 28th, when he gave that speech. Again, he did nothing else after that. 1963, and then he's dead. Well, 64, Civil Rights Bill was passed. 65, Voting Rights Act. But what happened in the summer of 1965? I know we got some brothers and sisters here from Baltimore City, and we know Baltimore exploded about a year ago. Why did Baltimore explode? The same reason why Watts, Los Angeles, exploded in 1965. Poverty, social economic disparity, police brutality, racial profiling. They may not call it gentrification then, but gentrification, right? Failing schools, and people feeling like they had nothing to lose. So they rebelled, they resisted, or what the media likes to call, they rioted. Are you with me out there? Dr. King was struck by this. Dr. King, who by 35 years of age had won the Nobel Peace Prize, he didn't understand why these black folks in urban areas were rising up. So what did Dr. King do? He went to Los Angeles. Go look at YouTube and watch the footage of him talking to people in Los Angeles. And notice how the black folks in Los Angeles said things to Dr. King like, "Get out of here, Dr. King. We ain't with that nonviolent stuff." And he was shook. Don't take my word for it, look it up. And Dr. King, because he was a humble person, he was not an arrogant leader, rather than turn his nose down at those people, he said, I need to understand Los Angeles, Baltimore, Chicago, New York. What did Dr. King do the next year? He moved to Chicago. Where did he move in Chicago? To the hood, to the west side of Chicago, because he wanted to understand the economic situation that led to Watts or Baltimore City. In 1967, 1 year to the day he was killed, April 4th, 67, he gives a speech condemning the Vietnam War. How we were sending poor blacks and poor whites to fight poor yellow people in a place called Vietnam. How we were taking money for social programs, Boys and Girls Club, Greater DC, y'all know what I'm talking about, and taking that money to build bombs to drop on people. Are y'all with me out here? This is a Christian minister saying this stuff. And he got condemned. People said he was unpatriotic. They said he had lost his mind. But Dr. King understood, you know what? Silence is betrayal. We know that for the rest of his life, what was he talking about, y'all? Poor people. Poor people. He was talking about poor people. And I want to talk about poor people. Yep, I've published 12 books. I'm proud of it. Yep, I do stuff on TV, radio all the time. Yep, if you go to CNN right now, CNN.com, I got a blog published about Dr. King. Yep, I travel all over the place doing speeches. Yesterday, this weekend, I was in Miami. Here I am in D.C. Tomorrow, Annapolis, Maryland. The next day, Baton Rouge. The day after that, Atlanta, Georgia. I've been tremendously blessed. But you know what? I also come from a single mother, no father, welfare, food stamps, government cheese, and the kind of poverty I wouldn't wish on anybody. And I will never, never, never forget where I come from. Y'all with me? And just because I happen to be professional or middle class now, whatever you want to call it, just because I went to college, unless you are an extreme individualist, how could you not see the suffering that's going on in D.C., in Baltimore, in New York, all over this country with working class people? How could you not see it? You know what I mean? Dr. King ended up in Memphis, Tennessee at the end of his life. Here's this man with a PhD. He could have done anything with his life. He could have been a part of anything. But here he was with sanitation workers, what we would call garbage men. Y'all know the picture. Them walking the sign. Little did I know, when I was being born, that poor people's campaign that Dr. King was telling us that we needed to have, he was talking about people like me. Little did I know. Little did I know that poor people's campaign became something called hip-hop. Well, who created hip-hop? Poor African Americans, poor West Indians, and poor Latinos in a place called New York City. 2 turntables, a microphone, some magic markers, some spray paint, some sneakers. This culture created by the poor people Dr. King told us not to forget became the voice of several generations of young people. Y'all with me out there? You know what I mean? All over the globe. Here we are in 2016,